coming up a little bit, but it's not too hard. You do have to make sure that you wrap these up. If you don't wrap them up, they're just really hard and not usable. Like I didn't wrap this one up, and even though it's like beautiful, I can't really use it. So you want to make sure that your piece is built and it's ready before you pull the handle. So this one has the slab bottom, some coils, it's got a slab going around, some coils going in, and then a nice fat coil lip at the top. So the first thing you want to decide is, where is your handle gonna go? So for me, I try to pick the ugly side. So I have like a panel of a slab that's going around, and then kind of where it meets, it's like not as cute as the rest of it. So that's gonna be my ugly side. Once you have the handle on there, it won't be so bad. Okay. The first thing you have to design is, what do you want this handle to look like? You're not gonna be able to manipulate it too much because it'll start to crack. But again, the part that we wanna save is this part. You're not gonna save most of this. You're not gonna save most of the stuff that's down there. But you've got some options. They can kind of go straight in. It can kind of like go up a little bit. You can kind of have like a C. You can kind of have it where it like curls back. You can have it where it curls back and curls in. It kind of just depends on what you want. You can always cut off more. You can never cut off less. So it's important that you cut off a little bit at a time. For me, I like it to go up a little bit on an angle and then kind of come down. So you want to look at your piece. I like to cut mine on an angle, giving myself a little bit extra just in case I make a mistake. For this, you kind of have to work off the table a little bit because it's so long. So start to think about what it's going to look like. Decide how far up it's going to be. I'm going to do it like right under where the lip is. So you want to score really well right there. You always do the top first, get the top nice and attached, and then you can kind of decide what the bottom's going to look like. Again, you can't bend it too many times, so you have to be careful that you're not like bending it back and forth. So get a lot of slip, get the area prepared. If you are building out of coils or something, you can kind of go back and fix up afterwards. But you want to get it attached. Always construction before the craftsmanship. Then you can kind of start playing with it. I like to play with it kind of off the edge of the table, so you can kind of decide, does that look good or it's a little too much. You don't want this to be really thick. You don't want it to be bigger than your finger. Again, you can decide if it's going to go like straight in or if it's going to go up a little bit. I like mine to go up a little bit. It's just a personal preference. And that looks pretty good. So you're going to score this really well. Make sure anytime you're attaching clay, you're slipping and scoring both sides. That's really important. You want to fill all those air pockets. Don't be cheap on the slip. Like really put a lot. It should be ooey and gooey, and it's okay if it, squishes out a little bit. You're gonna kind of like push it on there, hold it, and then take your thumb tool and go around and really get it to attach. This is where you might lose some of your coils a little bit. But you can go back in and cut them in with like this end of the thumb tool when it's over. So just go around, really get it to attach. The next part is to make a small coil and really get the coil around there. Again, this is hanging off the table on purpose so that I can deal with the bottom after I deal with the top. This clay that has set up overnight is pretty perfect to make your coil out of. It's the exact same consistency as what your handle is, so it's going to attach really, really well. You don't need a big coil. You're looking for a coil. You are going to need it for the top and the bottom. The weakest part of these handles is like right in here and at the bottom, right in there. So if you can make sure that you put a little extra clay there with a coil, it really helps keep it attached. Remember, once you have a handle, people are always going to pick something up by the handle. They're not going to pick it up like some other strange way. Please do not pick up your projects until they've been fired in the kiln by the handle. The handles are going to be really fragile until they've been fired, and then they're attached, and then you're good. If you pick it up beforehand, your handle will break off, your project will fall, and you will be sad. So please do not pick that up until it's been fired. Bone dry is not fired. You have to make sure that it turns into ceramics first. Again, this coil doesn't have to be very big, kind of small really. You are going to put a bunch of slip and score just around it. The This is just to help make sure that it attaches good and you don't have it come off. It's going to take a lot of wear and tear because people are always going to pick it up by that. So you want to really make sure that it's on there good. Really think about what you want the handle to look like. What do you like about your favorite handles? Take some time to really think about that when you're making your handle, what you want it to be like. Just kind of go all the way around, make like a O-ring around it. Take your thumb tool, you're going to blend this up into the piece and then down into the handle a little bit. You can kind of push it, smush it. Again, you can go back in and cut the coils after. You just really want to make sure that it's attached. You need a lot of slip so that you don't have air hiding in there. But this part over here, right where my finger is always the weak part. So you really want to make sure that you backfill that a little bit with the coil. Okay. The next step is, how do I want this bottom to look? I'm going to want it to come up a little bit. You want to kind of hold it in your hand, make sure that it feels good. If you're also doing a spout, like you're doing a teapot, you want to make sure that your spout is directly across from your handle. You don't want like the spout on the side or something. I would say at least get like 3 of your fingers in. It's okay if your pinky's out, but if you can get your pinky in, it's just that much more comfortable. So I think I'm going to make it go back like that. I'm not going to need all this. But my pattern on here is little swirls, kind of like a starry night. So I'm going to put a little bit of slip on the bottom of my handle and kind of curl this up so it kind of matches that swirl idea. You can go straight in if you want to. Okay. I'm going to make sure that this is straight. The top and the bottom are aligning so that you don't have like a handle that's going way off to the side. I'm going to kind of mark it with my needle tool right where I want it. And I'm going to score there. And we're going to attach it just like we did the top. We're going to score here. If you bend the handle too much, if you're like moving it a lot, it will crack and break on you. I do suggest that you make more than one handle in case A, it dries out, or B, something happens, like and you don't cut it right, or when you're wiggling it, it comes apart. That way you don't have to go back and pull handles again. You'll already have the second one ready. For anything with ceramics, make sure that you push it, kind of wiggle it a little bit, and then you blend it on. So you're going to blend it around with your thumb tool. You're going to lose a little bit of it, but when we put the coil back on, we'll get some back. It's up to you if you want it to sit on the ground or if it goes up a little bit. I like mine to go up just a little bit so that it doesn't quite sit flat on the floor. I could fit 3 fingers in pretty comfortably. And then now we're going to put the coil around the bottom. So everyone will have to have a pulled handle. If you're ready, if your project is ready, today is a good day to pull a handle if you're going to be here the next class. But the handles really don't last much longer than that. I'll make this one a little bit smaller coil because it's not really a lot of space. Make sure you got enough slip all the way around it. Again, this is one of the weak parts, so you really want to make sure that you get a nice little coil under there. And do the same thing. Take this, kind of blend it up and then down. Always construction first, so once you kind of get it together, you can always go back and kind of clean things up. But you want to make sure that that handle is really on there good, because people are always going to pick it up by the handle. It really helps when you're doing the handles if you work off the table a little bit. That way you don't kind of smash it. If you need to cut your coils back in again, Just make sure your handle's not like super, super wet. Sometimes you can wait a day and kind of let it dry out a little bit. I mean, still wrap it up, but it'll firm up and the slip will turn into clay and you'll have an easier time. The end of this is a pretty good tool if you need to go back through and cut your coils back in. Or your curly cue. Like mine disappeared a little bit when I was blending. So you can take this and kind of just clean that out. But it'll be easier once it kind of sets up for a day. If you are starting to like lose it, like it's going up and you want it to be like really up and it's starting to like fall, you can take a plastic bag that's really thin and kind of like mush it in there. And that can sometimes help you hold the shape if you're having trouble holding the shape. It might be a little rough. You might need to sponge it a little bit, but if it's really wet, wait for it to stiffen up before you go around and sponge it. So you might need to add a plastic bag. You might not. It might be holding just fine on its own. That's a pretty good handle and it kind of matches the mug. So really research the mugs, like look at them, decide what kind of handle you want. Again, I would make an extra handle just in case. You really can't pick it up by this. It's not ready yet. Even when it's bone dry and it feels hard and it feels like it'll support it, it's not going to. You have to wait for it to be fired. You gotta wait for it to go in the kiln and come back out. Anybody have questions on how to attach it?